Chapter 13. The Awakening of True Power. The battlefield pulsed with raw energy as John steadied himself. Mind-made mode was no longer just an overwhelming surge. It was refined, controlled. Belial lunged, a blur of motion faster than light, yet John saw it before it happened. Future sight. John twisted, dodging at the last possible moment, countering with a perfectly timed strike that sent Belial crashing through a streetlight. Jeremy's eyes widened. That was Carter's ability. He saw the attack coming before it even happened. Before Belial could recover, John raised his hand, and the air itself trembled. Belial froze mid-motion, gripping his head in agony. His thoughts, his very mind forced open. Mind influence. Elijah gasped. Wait, he's using my power? John didn't stop. With a flick of his wrist, Belial's movements became sluggish. The once untouchable demon staggered, his balance thrown off as John invaded his mind. Naomi's healing glow radiated from John's palms, mending his own injuries mid-battle. His body repaired itself faster than Belial could land another hit. Belial snarled, launching a devastating punch only for his fist to stop inches from John's face. John didn't flinch. Invincibility. David's jaw dropped. He didn't even block. His body just took the hit like nothing. John gripped Belial's wrist, his strength surging beyond comprehension. With a single pull, he lifted the demon effortlessly and slammed him into the earth, creating a massive crater. Super strength, Zara whispered in disbelief. He's cycling through all of our powers, like it's second nature. Belial roared, wings erupting from his back, trying to take to the skies, but a force yanked him down. The very fabric of reality bent around John's will. Gravity itself obeyed him. Jeremy gasped. That's my power. He's using it even better than I can. Belial thrashed, struggling to break free. But John wasn't finished. He closed his eyes, concentrating. A pulse of divine energy rippled through his body. The battlefield became clear. Every movement, every possibility laid out before him. John smiled. This is my power. Mind-made mode wasn't just an enhancement. It was total mastery. For the first time, Belial felt fear. John raised his hand, golden energy crackling around his fingertips. This is over. A devastating blast erupted from his palm, pure, concentrated divine energy. Belial screamed. The explosion engulfed him, a blinding wave of power that shook the entire city. When the dust cleared, Belial was gone. John exhaled, releasing mind-made mode. His energy faded, his body returning to normal. The team stood in silence, staring at him in awe. Carter was the first to speak. We're looking at something beyond human. Naomi stepped forward. John, what was that? John glanced at his hands, still feeling the lingering power. He had tapped into something greater. This is just the beginning. The battle was won, but they all knew the war was far from over. The aftermath of the battle sent shockwaves through the underworld. Deep within the shadows of their domain, the 7 devils gathered, their forms flickering with dark energy. Belial, battered and humiliated, knelt before the others, his pride shattered. Leviathan's piercing gaze burned into him. You lost, Leviathan hissed, his voice like grinding stone, to a mortal. Belial clenched his fists. Not just a mortal. John Harris has become something more. Lucifer, seated at the head of the gathering, steepled his fingers. His golden eyes gleamed with amusement, but underneath was a quiet fury. Mind-made mode. He's learned to access the full extent of his abilities. Mammon scoffed. Then we kill him now, before he grows any stronger. Fool. Asmodeus interjected. If it were that simple, Belial would have done it. He turned his gaze to their fallen brother. Tell us, how strong is he really? Belial exhaled sharply. Strong enough to counter everything I threw at him. He didn't just use raw power. He adapted. He learned mid-battle. His movements, his precision, it's as if he already knew what I would do before I did it. A tense silence followed. Then Beelzebub, the gluttonous warlord, leaned forward. If John is advancing this fast, we must accelerate our plans. Lucifer finally rose. casting a long shadow over them all. We will break him. His team grows stronger, but so do we. I will send another, someone who will push John beyond his limits. If he survives, we will be ready. A sinister grin spread across his lips as he turned to the darkened edges of the chamber. Malachar failed, but our next warrior will not. From the shadows, a monstrous figure stepped forward, his eyes burning with hellfire. Meanwhile, back at Harris Labs, John and his team stood in the holographic battle room. The battle simulation flickered off, leaving them all breathless. John wiped sweat from his brow, his body still pulsing with the power of mind-made mode. He was getting better, more control, more precision. His teammates stared at him, still processing what they had witnessed. Jeremy crossed his arms. Dude, you were using all of our powers like it was nothing. Naomi nodded. It was like watching all of us combined into one person. David smirked. So, what do we call this version of you? John thought for a moment, then chuckled. I guess. You can call it Ultra Mind-Made Mode. Detective Carter, leaning against the control panel, spoke up. Whatever it is, you need to master it fast. The devils aren't going to sit back and lick their wounds forever. John nodded. Then we train, harder than ever. As they reset the battle room for another round, a dark presence loomed over them, watching, waiting. The next fight was coming, and this time, John would need more than just mind-made mode to win.